Some netizens asked me why I didn't discuss the U.S. Army's 250th anniversary parade. After all, this was the ceremony Trump had always dreamed of. He could finally stand on the reviewing platform to inspect his troops, just like his good friends Putin, Xi Jinping, and Kim Jong-un. Honestly, I had high expectations for the U.S. parade and even watched the live broadcast. But I didn't see a powerful army, nor did I see the fighting spirit of U.S. soldiers. What I saw was just a group of disorganized troops armed with advanced weapons. If the U.S. expects these people to win a war against China, they're daydreaming. Moreover, the organization of this parade was extremely amateurish. The process was chaotic, and it lacked any spectacle. Trump should have outsourced this event to Hollywood. Their extras would have replaced the U.S. Army and achieved a much better effect. First, let's look at the soldiers' mental state. Compare the U.S. parade formation with China's military formation. To me, the U.S. troops looked no different from our neighborhood security guards training. Some say that marching well or having spirit in a parade is useless, and that the U.S. military's combat effectiveness has been proven in actual combat. That statement is nonsense. Throughout history, any powerful army had an impressive parade formation, whether it was the German, Soviet, U.S., or British forces during World War II. The U.S. military strength refers to World War II or the Korean War. But in the later stages of the Vietnam War and all subsequent wars, the U.S. faced opponents with equipment 2 or even 3 generations behind. The U.S. had an absolute equipment advantage. Even so, the U.S. failed to conquer Vietnam and eventually abandoned Afghanistan. In 1950, the U.S. Army, fresh from World War II, fought Chinese forces in Korea. Its combat effectiveness was remarkable, and its fighting spirit was acknowledged by the Chinese side. Volunteer soldiers who fought in the war recalled that U.S. pilots dive-bombed Chinese trains hiding in tunnels, pulling up almost against the mountainside to return to the sky. Their superb combat skills and astonishing courage left a deep impression on Chinese soldiers. But we need to understand that was the U.S. at its peak. Its economy accounted for half of the global total, and its equipment was 2 generations ahead of the Chinese volunteers. Yet it still failed to defeat China. At that time, China's GDP was a fraction of the U.S.'s. Today's U.S. military equipment, at least what was displayed at the parade, is far from being 2 generations ahead of China's. It would be lucky not to be outclassed by China. The U.S. has no right to expect to defeat China through equipment superiority. Only soldiers with grit, competing through sheer fighting spirit, could stand a chance against China. The air combat between Pakistan and India has already proven that so-called Western weapons are nothing to fear in the face of an industrial powerhouse like China. If the U.S. expects these disorganized troops to confront China, they can try on the battlefield. I bet their surrender would be no slower than India's. The U.S. soldiers' rotary-wing drones and robotic dogs are extremely inferior versions. They can't even compare to DJI's civilian models, let alone China's military equipment. The scene of soldiers holding remote controllers and following robotic dogs reminded me of the Indian Army buying toy robotic dogs from a Guangdong factory. I wonder if the U.S. robotic dogs were ordered from Temu. When robotic dogs are deployed on the battlefield, even without AI for autonomous combat, operators would control them remotely. There's no need to walk behind them. Otherwise, what's the point of robotic dogs? To drag back dead soldiers? However, from the U.S.'s focus on displaying drones, robotic dogs, and other equipment, even with soldiers carrying drones while marching, we can see that the U.S. tactical thinking is similar to China's military. It moves beyond traditional ground warfare, heavily developing drones and robotic dogs to replace human soldiers in combat. But the U.S. needs to consider a very real problem. China is not an ordinary small country. It has powerful drone jamming capabilities and strong electronic warfare abilities. Of course, the U.S. has these capabilities too. Ultimately, A China-US confrontation would inevitably involve direct clashes between soldiers. In a narrow encounter, the brave prevail. The current state of U.S. soldiers clearly shows they've fought too many weak opponents and forgotten what a real enemy looks like. Moreover, when it comes to competing in drones and robotic dogs, what qualifies the U.S. to challenge China? China's DJI and Unitree are the world's leading drone and robotic dog companies, respectively. Even China's second or third-ranked drone and robotic dog companies are not to be underestimated by U.S. firms. Don't forget, after China's rare earth export ban, the U.S. defense industry ground to a halt. With that level of capability, do you still expect to compete with China in drones and robotic dogs? Dream on. It's more realistic for U.S. soldiers to practice M16 shooting and study bayonet fighting. Of course, if Trump can recognize the U.S.'s true strength, boast less, and coexist peacefully with China, we would welcome it. But rare earths still require export licenses. As for chips, sell them or don't, it doesn't matter. China can already produce its own and won't take long to catch up. Finally, I suggest everyone save the U.S. parade video and compare it with China's parade in September. You'll find it very entertaining.